God, I ask that these crimes be considered more serious than all previous crimes. Firm reaffirm. Firm reaffirm. Just she does housework. Just a lonely boy in a great big lonely world. Someone like you could make my dreams come true. In all the mountains I could climb, if you just put your hand in mine, there ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. Hello. I want you to know I haven't smoked anything but cigarettes and hemp rolls, CBDs, cigarettes. Oh, somebody. I haven't smoked anything but cigarettes and hemp rolls, CBDs, cigarettes. Oh, somebody. Hello. I want you to know I haven't smoked anything but cigarettes and hemp rolls, CBDs, cigarettes. Oh, somebody. Okay. Hello. I didn't used to have the ugliest smile. Thanks a lot. Feel kind of awake now. I don't really want to look anything up. Supreme Court upheld Obamacare today. And Biden made Juneteenth a federal holiday. And I guess Juneteenth celebrates of the ending of black slavery, legally, constitutionally or whatever. And, well, George Floyd's death, I think they honor that too. But the president had a lot of people around him, and he did the signing, of his name, giving each one a pen. There's a fake story going around that says it's Euronews with a Euronews reporter, and it ain't. It's just fake. And the reporter was trying to get people not to vote in the Iranian elections. So, the fake reporter. I guess, did Biden and Putin have their summit yesterday? Must have been yesterday because he's back in the White House. So I missed that whole thing.
Elena made good coffee today. My hands are so unsteady when I spoon from the can to the thing. I spill, and it goes between the filter and the thing that holds the filter. I get all this gunk in my coffee. Oh, Caprice got a job. She starts Saturday. She has hours Saturday and Sunday. And she doesn't know when she's gonna get her first paycheck. She's hoping it's next week, but she's not sure. She should find out more tomorrow. She's having like an introduction. She's already had her interview, but she's gonna have like her introduction, and she has to get a tuberculosis test. Excuse me, a TB test where they put a prong in your arm, and then you watch it for 24 hours or something. I also think they all weigh 5,000 pounds, forever and ever. Affirm, reaffirm, affirm, reaffirm, affirm, reaffirm, to the power of an infinite number of infinities.
King's
isn't co-sponsoring the big voting rights bill, Senate Bill 1, the For the People Act. 49 of 50 Democratic senators are on board with it, but not Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Earlier this month, he, of course, published an op-ed saying he wouldn't vote for it. If no Republicans would vote for it, then neither would he. The Senate Republican leader has said, in fact, not a single Republican will vote for a voting rights bill, so that would seem to be the end of that. But then today, interesting news. Senator Manchin today released a list, what he called a compromise proposal on voting rights, a list of things that he likes and that he apparently thinks could get lots of Republican support. He then noisily held a meeting with 8 Republican senators to discuss his proposal on voting rights. The problem here, though, is the math. Say, for argument's sake, that all the other Democrats give Joe Manchin everything he wants on this bill. They all agree to still vote for it, even though there's a bunch of stuff on there the Democrats don't like. And say that Manchin miraculously convinces all 8 of these Republican senators he's meeting with that they should also support the bill. That would still not be enough votes to pass it over a Republican filibuster, even under the unrealistically auspicious circumstances I just described. Unless Senator Manchin is willing to change the Senate rules so that at least voting rights bills can't be filibustered, he's proposing this compromise for absolutely nothing. Senator Manchin says he wants to pass a voting rights bill. The math doesn't work, though, and the coverage of this should reflect that. Watch this space.
Yeah.
ABC News reporter Rachel Scott pressed him on Navalny today and on related matters. The exchange, actually, between reporter Rachel Scott and President Putin, to my eye, was the moment that was probably the most important public exchange of the whole day.
If I may, sir, the list of your political opponents who are dead, prisoned, or jailed is long. Alexei Navalny's organization called for free and fair elections and end to corruption, but Russia has outlawed that organization, calling it extremist, and you have now prevented anyone who supports him to run for office. So my question is, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
It's not prohibited, they're not prohibited from working, they can continue to operate. Foreign agents don't need to stop operating. If they are extremist in nature, then that's another issue. The organization that you mentioned has publicly called for a mass disorder.
You didn't answer my question, sir. If all of your political opponents are dead, in prison, poisoned, doesn't that send a message that you do not want a fair political fight?
Yeah, very good.
As for who is killing Groom and throwing Groom in jail, people came to the U.S. Congress with political demands. 400 people had criminal charges placed on them.
ABC News congressional correspondent Rachel Scott driving Vladimir Putin to sputtering today, the flummoxing him to the point where he started going, oh, what about January 6th? What about that? What about? Michael Wigfall, former U.S. Ambassador to Russia under President Obama, joins us live now. Mr. Ambassador, it's great to see you. Thank you for staying up till the middle of nowhere, the middle of the night, to be with us tonight.
Glad to be with you as always, Rachel.
What are likely to be the consequences, if any, of today's events for Russian opposition figures, for independent media in Russia? It feels like the Kremlin has felt untrammeled, totally unconstrained in the way that it's been going after the opposition and the media lately. What will today do to affect that, if anything?
Well, first, you're absolutely right. 2021 will go down in Russian history as one of the most autocratic years we've had since the collapse of the Soviet Union. In fact, I think you have to go deep into the Soviet Union to remember a time that has been so oppressive. And so I was delighted, I have to say honestly, to hear the President of the United States again talk about democracy and human rights like traditionally we used to. But it was very important, I think, what President Biden said today. And he named Navalny. He didn't shy away from him. I don't know if you remember, but our previous president wouldn't use his name either, just like Vladimir Putin. And I can tell you, I spoke to some Navalny supporters after that press conference. They heard that voice of support. It doesn't mean things are going to change overnight, but it does mean that they are hearing that people who believe in democracy outside of their own country are thinking about them. And there's a kind of feeling of solidarity, I would say, about ideas that are shared between Russians and Americans.
No matter what you do, there's a Chevy that's perfect to take you anywhere. See why Chevy is America's fastest growing full-line brand. Find new roads at your local Chevy dealer.
I guess Dan, vanilla was the same price as the Kroger vanilla, same size, or less.
Alexa, alarm lagi an.
President Biden at his press conference after the meeting, he seems sort of, I mean, your mileage may vary depending on how you perceive the president, may affect how you saw him today. To me, he seems sort of grounded and satisfied with how it went. President Biden said he believed it was important for he and President Putin to meet in person. He said, quote, "I did what I came to do." He said the tone of the discussion with Putin was good and positive. He described it as neither strident nor hyperbolic, and said that's important, that's the way it needs to be. If you have the sense, though, that this means we're friends now, we're not friends now. President Biden both took pains to say that no threats were issued by either side in today's discussions, but then he also made sure to share with the press this not very subtle threat that he says he left in Putin's proverbial lap.
And before I take your questions, I want to say one last thing. Folks, look, this is about how we move from here. I listened to, again, a significant portion of what President Putin's press conference was. And as he pointed out, this is about practical, straightforward, no-nonsense decisions that we have to make or not make. For example, when I talked about the pipeline that cyber hit for $5 million, that ransomware hit in the United States, I looked at him and I said, well, how would you feel if ransomware took on the pipelines from your oil fields? He said it would matter. This is not about just our self-interest. It's about a mutual self-interest. I'll take your questions.
And then he took questions. I looked at him and I said, well, how would you feel about a cyber attack taking down the pipelines from your oil fields? President Putin, according to President Biden, he said it would matter. Yeah, you've got your Russian cyber attack shutting down our fuel pipeline on the East Coast. You're physically the largest country on earth with an economy smaller than Italy's, in part because your government is terrible and also because there is no Russian economy other than oil. But because of your corruption and your terrible governance, even your oil sector, the entire basis of your economy, is backward and decrepit. You think cyber attacks on us are no big deal? Cyber attacks on our fuel infrastructure?
That's fascinating. Russia has an economy smaller than Italy.
No big deal, really? You want to put yourself on the line here, too?
I pointed out to him we have significant cyber capability. And he knows it. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but it's significant. And if in fact they violate these basic norms, we will respond. Cyber. He knows.
He knows. President Putin, for his part today, he denied all Russian responsibility for any cyber attacks on the United States at all. Also for the attacks his government mounted against our elections in 2016 and 2020. Now, when it comes to Georgia, there's very interesting new reporting here from the Washington Post. Quote, one relatively high-ranking Justice Department lawyer, a man named Jeffrey Clark, seemed to entertain Trump's requests, pushing internally to have the Justice Department assert that fraud in the state of Georgia was cause for that state's lawmakers to disregard Georgia's election results and appoint new presidential electors. Trump contemplated installing Jeff Clark as Attorney General. Clark was then running both the Environment and Natural Resources Division and also the Civil Division at the Justice Department. And he, unlike others in the Justice Department, was more sympathetic to Trump's claims of election fraud. According to people familiar with the matter, Jeff Clark became particularly focused on Georgia, trying to persuade Justice Department leaders that they should issue a letter that argued that Georgia's elections were affected by fraud, and as a consequence, Georgia's lawmakers should disregard the presidential election results and instead appoint their own electors, meaning have the Republicans in the state legislature pick Trump electors instead of the state's electors who were for Biden, because Biden actually won the state. According to two people familiar with the matter, Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen tried to convince Jeff Clark that his theories were misguided. On New Year's Day, he shared with Jeff Clark the cell phone number of B.J. Pak, who was then the U.S. Attorney, the top federal prosecutor in Atlanta. Two people familiar with the matter said that Rosen was helpful, that the U.S. Attorney could convince Jeff Clark there was no widespread fraud in Georgia. After giving Jeff Clark the U.S. Attorney's phone number, Rosen circled back the next day, asking Clark in an email, were you able to follow up? In a meeting at the White House 2 days later, January 3rd, according to two people familiar with the matter, President Trump complained that he wanted to fire the Georgia U.S. Attorney, B.J. Pak, who he felt was not doing enough to uncover fraud in Georgia. The people said participants in the meeting told the president that B.J. Pak intended to leave anyway, that he need not take the step of firing him. Just after 10 p.m. that night, an email shows a senior Justice Department official named Richard Donahue emailed the U.S. Attorney, emailed B.J. Pak, writing in the subject line, please call ASAP. Two people familiar with the matter said the official conveyed to B.J. Pak what was said at the meeting about him. Early the next morning, Pak informed staff he was stepping down. He was then replaced by a new U.S. Attorney, a man named Bobby Christine, whom Trump viewed as more amenable to his voter fraud claims. This is the fullest accounting we have yet had of that incident. The president pushing these bogus election fraud claims in Georgia because he does not want to have lost Georgia. He's threatening Georgia officials, right, we now know, telling them they needed to find enough votes to declare him the winner. He's got a guy he's trying to install as the new Attorney General, planning to install as the new Attorney General, who wants the Justice Department to, in fact, write to Georgia and tell them they can't certify their results. They need their election results were infected with fraud, and new electors should be appointed. The U.S. Attorney, the top federal prosecutor in Georgia, got calls from a Maine justice by that official, who wanted to tell Georgia officially from the Justice Department that Georgia needed to uncertify their election and instead say Trump won. The U.S. Attorney, after receiving that call and getting a follow-up call from the White House, resigns under circumstances still not clear. There is an active criminal investigation underway in the state of Georgia into the president's actions when he tried to interject himself into the process, tried to influence elections officials to try to get them to alter the election outcome in that state. It's being investigated by multiple congressional committees and by the Justice Department Inspector General. It is also being investigated as a criminal matter by a state prosecutor in the state of Georgia. What was said to that U.S. Attorney who resigned? What was said to him by the Justice Department official who called him up, the one we know wanted Georgia to undo its election results? What was said to him in the call from the White House? Why did he resign? What did they try to get him to do? And this is starting to look like a pretty good map of the potential crime scene for an ongoing criminal investigation. Joining us now is Amy Gardner. She's the Washington Post national political reporter. She's one of 4 Post reporters who's bylined on this story today. Ms. Gardner, it's really nice to have you here. Thanks for making time tonight.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
So This piece today is a great sort of connecting of the dots and a bringing together of lots of different sources of information, including interviews with people involved in or briefed on these events. In terms of the pressure that was put on Justice Department officials, what are the unanswered questions here? What are the black boxes that aren't answered either in the emails or in the interviews that you and your colleagues conducted, that either a criminal investigation or congressional investigation might be able to get at?
Well, I can tell you what I'm really curious about. I'm certainly curious about exactly what prompted BJ Pak to resign, as you just alluded to. I think that there are a couple of different possibilities, and we just don't know what happened. It seems as if Rich Donahue called him to say that Trump was displeased with him, and that conversation prompted Mr. Pak to resign. That doesn't mean that Pak was asked to do something that he didn't want to do. It could mean that he saw, this is a man who was planning to resign anyway, had already announced his plans to resign. He saw that he was going to be a distraction in the efforts in Main Justice to sort of fend off President Trump's efforts to overturn the election. So we just don't know exactly what happened there. The other thing that I'm really curious about is you talked about Jeff Clark, the Assistant Attorney General over Environment and Civil, who was more eager than some of the other leadership at DOJ to help President Trump find evidence of fraud. Well, what was the evidence that he was pursuing, and who was he talking to seek out that evidence? There's one exchange in emails that we got yesterday where he talks about where the acting Attorney General, Jeff Rosen, says, "Did you talk to BJ Pak?" And we know from our reporting that he wanted Mr. Pak to explain to Mr. Clark that there wasn't widespread fraud in Georgia, that he should back off, that this was a fool's errand. But
That
instead,
Damon Vanilla is so good.
Mr. Clark responds to Rosen in this email, "No, I didn't talk to Pak." He says, "I spoke to the source. I'm on with the guy who took the video right now, working on it, more due diligence to do." We have no idea what he's talking about here. What video, what guy? I mean, there were videos shot, as we all know, of election workers and, voting equipment contractors doing their jobs that were wildly misinterpreted by conspiracy theorists. People had death threats. There was a noose hung in the front lawn of one worker for Dominion Voting in Georgia. Was he speaking to somebody who took videos like that, who in some cases had, relationships with QAnon? Was the, a senior leader in the DOJ going to people with QAnon relationships to find evidence of fraud in the 2020 election? I mean, that's my biggest question that I don't know the answer to right now.
Our lifestyle depends on healthy honeys. It's estimated that 1 in 3 bikers.
On this vote, the yeas are 415 and the nays are 14. The bill is passed.
Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee announcing the passage tonight in the House of Legislation to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee sponsored the legislation to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. She also sponsored legislation to create what they call a national emancipation trail to trace the news of the Emancipation Proclamation, the news of the freeing of the slaves, to Galveston, Texas. It took more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by President Lincoln for the news to reach Galveston on June 19th, 1865. Once President Biden signs this bill that has now passed the Senate and the House, June 19th every year will be celebrated as the Juneteenth federal holiday, honoring the end of slavery in the United States.
It is specifically
Like I said, it was a
for that.
unanimous vote in the Senate. It was an overwhelming vote in the House, but not a unanimous one. There were 14 Republicans who voted against it. 14 conservative Republican white guys all voted that we should not commemorate the end of slavery in the United States, which is the kind of vote that will stick to their shoe forever and smell up any room they ever walk into for the rest of their lives. Forgive me for saying so. But it's worth noting that they were a rump minority. Yes, there were 14 Republican men who voted no, but there were 195 Republican men and women who voted yes for the holiday, along with every single Democrat in the United States House and every single United States senator from both parties. So take Congresswoman Lee's palpable joy as the punctuation mark on this vote today. President Biden is on his way back from Europe as we speak. There is no rule that says he has to sign this newly passed bill as soon as he gets back, but there is some good timing coming up. Stood against it. Hi, guys.
Oh, against.
Just a lonely boy in a great big lonely world. Someone like you could make my dreams come true. Then all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hand in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do.
Oh.
My dreams would all come true if I had you. You can make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like a friend to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And I love you and knew that you love me. Come on.
Comes after the meeting. He's sort of
Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, the Geneva Summit. President Joe Biden heads there today to face Russian President Vladimir Putin in their first
Please enter your password. Main menu. To listen to your message, press 1.
Please protect me from evil, God. Affirm, 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 affirm. Power of an infinite number of infinities. Could you please get rid of them, all of them, all Satan's God? Affirm, 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 affirm. The power of an infinite number of infinities.
Just a lonely boy in a great big lonely world. Someone like you could make my dreams come true. And all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hand in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la, la la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. You can make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like
Please stop them from torturing my left foot, God. Affirm, 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 affirm.
to see me through, and I love you and knew that you love me. La la la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do.
Please stop them from torturing my left foot, God. Affirm, 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 affirm. Could you make them go away, please? Affirm, 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 affirm. Oh. As the crimes that they're committing now will be considered more serious than previous crimes. Affirm, reaffirm, affirm, reaffirm. Okay. I'm getting ready to go lay down and watch TV. So I'll upload this, but I won't complete it till I wake up. And then I'll leave it running next, after this. But I probably won't upload that.